Blessed day, soul family. Welcome back to the Martial Mystic Calendar Series 2026. We're getting through it. Thursday now. So it's Resolution Thursday. And I'm really excited to be sharing this Thursday series because it feeds into the book that I want to write that combines interpersonal neurobiology with Tai Chi philosophy and push hands practices. Today we're talking about transcending the divide. Transcend the divide. We can all see that we've been experiencing a lot of pain, described as division, polarization. But that's not necessarily a new phenomena. In a way, it's more new generations become exposed to the problem, the pain, the suffering, and the subject. One of the questions that came to me was, since we've been talking about the past few days, regulation, um, resolution, and connection and relationship, is there a connection between regulation and resolution? And something came to mind to me in this video that I'm about to show you with regard to organization and self organization. So remember, on Monday we talked about Mental Health Monday. We defined the mind, a embodied and relational, uh, emerging and organizing process. And it's not necessarily encased just in the skull. It's also relational. So it's inside, but it's also in between people and in between the space of people. An example that Dr. Young uses, Dr. Young, Dr. Dan Siegel, is um, his experience with attachment and how there is a collective mind in family, a partnered mind between parents and children. On Tai Chi Tuesday, we talked about interconnectedness. We talked about split and division and the origination of the 10,000 things, from Wuji to Tai Chi to Yin Yang. When we are overwhelmed and distracted by the world, we have the 10,000 things. When we try to look for root and resolution, then we want to try to trace back to where the original split was. I have it here. And oftentimes, what we're going for is the sensation, the feeling of balance, living in harmony, feeling harmonious, mind body integration, what Dr. Dan Siegel calls coherence, which is resilience over time, where differentiated parts are linked together. So, in wellness yesterday, my partner Nona, she joined me. We talked about the emergence of chaos and rigidity as being symptomatic of imbalance in a system like the self. And so while we envision harmony and yin yang in this way, yin yang can often look like this. Yin yang can often feel like this. And until we have a sense of harmony and balance and inner peace, it can really just kind of feel like this. And as mentioned, we want to get back to that sense of the first split. Here we go. The first split, right? When we look at origin and when we look at self, when we look at one another, when we look at friends, parents, community, human species, humankind, in this way, we can easily see the similar root. And while two things are separate, they have a linked connection, a connection of origin. So in Wellness Wednesday, we talked about finding this that within the self, finding this origin where mind and body are one, and then also we're posing the question: is it relational? Right? So we have two separate beings, but yet are they one? In the body itself, two separate hands, but do they function as one? Two separate feet, but do they function as one? Upper energy center, upper dantian, and lower dantian, do they function as one? So let's look at this because we're talking about conflict resolution. Let's look at this video um, and this presentation about interpersonal neurobiology and see how this basis and this foundation for uh, interpersonal neurobiology, collective mind, connected selves. Let's see how we can apply that now.
Earth like a trash can, what results is a chaotic world that we're experiencing right now. It's called a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That's a term that's used in the military, it's used in the media.
So this was in 2018. This is now in 2026, and he's describing a um, chaotic world.
The VUCA world we're in right now, what I want to suggest to you, is coming because the human brain has a vulnerability to think that it's separate from the rest of living organisms. It's like I once attended a quantum physics think tank, we'll get into that in a moment, and the first presenter put up a slide. Quantum physics has demonstrated that the world is profoundly interconnected. The real question is, what's wrong with the human mind that thinks it's not? And that's pretty funny and incredibly sad. And it's the issue of the quiz we're going to get into in a moment. What's the self? Because you may say, well, of course, the self that's me is sitting in this chair. Or the self that's Dan is up here on stage. And that view is so common and so misguided. Energy and information flow, if that's where the self is coming from, I'll suggest to you, is not limited by skull or skin. And yet we use the skin as a defining feature of who we are. And that is a toxic lie.
Bold claim. We saw in the Monday video how his definition of the mind is not necessarily agreed upon, and it's quite radical. Here, using the same theory, quite radical um, proposition to say that the self is not the self doesn't stop at just the skin. And so, I believe last week we talked about conflict resolution, how the sensation and the feeling for a conflict in our world, in our personal lives, is such a an experience of suffering and pain. Buddhist teaching tries to reduce suffering. Martial arts, Chinese martial arts specifically, has roots in Buddhism. So in Chinese martial arts, we study martial morality, trying to exercise benevolence and through loyalty, through justice, through discipline, through perseverance, um, and other moralities. And so, moving forward with again Buddhist teachings, right thought, right speech, right action. how can we learn to coexist and continue evolution? And last week we talked about how uh, Wu Ji is a symbol and can be a symbol for uh, that place where all conflicts are resolved. If you are someone that is struggling with personal conflict in your life, family, friends, what have you, I would extend this idea and say there is a place where all the conflict that we experience here in this earthly realm is resolved. And so, if you could place your mind, your attention there, you can see possibility, you can see and feel maybe an expanded mind and consciousness that, yes, there is a peace in this rift, there is a peace in this um, dispute, there is a peace in this conflict here. Wu Ji. Wu Ji is also that vision for that grand beyond to which we are all destined. What does that feel like? What's your vision of uh, a concept like heaven? You know, and can are we all one in that place, and all and are our conflicts resolved there? And we often talk about the three large powers: San Bao, San Sai, heaven, man, and earth, coming from also origin and source, and how between heaven and earth, humankind is the mediator as one soul family. And so I pose this question: are we blessed to be witnessing the constant division and polarization today that we are witnessing? Are we blessed to be seeing that? How could we get to that thinking? We have to look at traditional Chinese medicine. We have to look at wellness, strategy, and practice. Why does why do symptoms arise in our well-being? Why do symptoms arise in our body? Why does your knee hurt? Why does your back hurt? Why does your elbow, neck hurt? Why does your stomach hurt? Why does your heart hurt? What are these signals of, right? Oftentimes in the West, the tendency is to um, kind of treat the body like our automobiles. Take it to the mechanic, get the parts replaced. And we lose sight of the fact that we are these self-healing machines. And so when these pain points and signals arise, then we are called to make friends with this pain and communicate with the message of the pain so as to resolve that conflict and restore harmony. I believe Dan Siegel still has more to say a little here around the self.
that is creating misery in humanity and misery for other living beings. And it's something we can do something about. So you may say, well, how do we do something about that? So on the next slide,
He goes into his strategies for the wheel of awareness, which I definitely recommend. So going back to the concept, are we blessed to be witnessing the division and the polarization? If you see it symptomatic as a pain point, then you can say, okay, I can take agency and ownership and responsibility with dispute resolution systems, with conflict resolution systems, to find that space and that place where all conflicts are resolved, and to step and move forward with skill to contribute to the peace on the planet. That's the vision of Marshall Rosenberg, nonviolent communication author. How do you know when you're not contributing to peace on the planet? Four friends: anger, depression, guilt, and shame. If you are embodied in those states, you're less likely to contribute to peace on the planet. Technology. We can say because of the algorithms that technology is bombarding us with all of the polarization and division. So we can see the pain. It's right there in our faces and we're connected to it. So what can we do? Well, we are called to address it in our own space, in the body, in our own households, interpersonally, in our communities. Because we can only influence the space that's at arm's length and those that are at arm's length. And technology now, simply by making this video, poses, if we flip it, take that information that's coming in and understand, oh, there is a way. There is a way out of conflict. This is just the polarization and division is just a symptom of an illness. What is our strategy to mitigate illness? Restore circulation, restore blood flow, and circulate the energy, because we're always looking for quality and quantity of energy. And so this is how, if one cannot be aware of one's thoughts, be aware of the speech. If one can't be aware of the speech, be aware of the actions. If one cannot be aware of one's actions, then we need to start, then we can only see the actions of others. And rather than pointing fingers, we learn from the actions of others. Anti role modeling. This helps us stabilize our moral compass, our righteous action. And again, pain signals the weakest link, requiring reconnection, communication, circulation, and flow. Let's go to Marshall Rosenberg and see what he has to say about pain within the respect of conflict resolution and interpersonal context.
You see, natural giving, what I started the day off with that song, anything we do in life that isn't coming out of that energy, we pay for it and everybody else pays for it. Anything we do out of fear of punishment, if we don't, everybody pays for it. Anything we do for a reward, everybody pays for it. Everything we do to make people like us, everybody pays for it. Everything we do out of guilt, shame, duty, obligation, everybody pays for it. That isn't what we were designed for. We were designed to enjoy giving, to give from the heart.
If we're not giving from the heart, we're giving for these other twisted reasons, and everybody's paying for it. Does that connect to our February poetry? Do not be afraid of the initiation of a thought, but be afraid of the delayed perception of the thought. Be afraid of the awareness of the thought arising. So, are we delayed in our perception of everybody paying for it? Lastly, we'll finish off with Yin Yang Tai Chi, a literal peace movement. Short book, but connected to the direction that we're going with interpersonal neurosomatics, bringing this interpersonal theory, Tai Chi theory, and pushing hands practices together. So, this is what I call transcending the divide, where Dan Siegel talks about the self is not limited to just the skin, the mind is not limited to just the skull. And when Marshall Rosenberg talks about everybody paying for it, this notion where we see our limited earth suits as an identity of just one, where this ancient knowledge and technology steers us in a clear direction where we are all one. But how do we embody that? How do we learn that? And how do we teach that to one another? We transcend the divide. Being that internal is mirrored by the external, a practitioner meditates on creating conditions for peace, not conditions for conflict. As a result, downstream effects include longevity, sustainability, and efficient use of energy. The mythology is mirrored outside the body as it is grounded and honed inside the body. To create conditions for peace, whether actively participating and taking action or merely observing and assessing, a practitioner must aim to transcend the perceived divide, seeing the whole picture, embracing nuance and staying neutral, and always searching for deeper roots, excavating intelligence. Conflict often yields polarization and division, like symptoms of disease, fixation on the symptom that can trap the mind and drain one's energy, which propagates further conflict. A practitioner understands polarization as a limited perspective and agrees to journey to the roots of the symptom. In that space, one works to unearth the intelligence that will restore ease, stability, and wholeness. By design, a response will manifest not as a reaction to a symptom, but a peace movement from the roots. Yin Yang Tai Chi works as a literal peace movement, addressing one's own symptomology, and when harmony is achieved, self knowledge, nature Kung Fu, levels up via the nervous system. Nature's wisdom is achieved. Nature's wisdom is conveyed through the body to inform the mind, fundamentally harmonizing yin, mind, yang, body of the practitioner. Two seemingly separate factions make the whole. Two is one, and one is two. Transcending the divide. This is a small ebook that I have available on yinyangtaiji.org. There's more here to see, and we'll continue talking about this. If you have a comment, um, something to share, if this resonates with you, then you are someone who's looking to contribute to peace on the planet. You're someone who's looking to mitigate conflict, live and move and be the peace that you want to see in the world. And as this um, as this paragraph boldly states, where organized religion has failed, yin yang Tai Chi excels. Concepts of oneness and unity remain merely abstract concepts with no pathway or template for manifestation. Religions can only reach the intellect of the parishioner because they neglect the value of movement in the body. All lessons remain void and one sided. So, how can the world expect full guidance to oneness if we cannot embody oneness and actually feel it on the nervous system? So, that's going to complete our Thursday Yin Yang Tai Chi uh, with conflict resolution and how we can transcend the divide. So, tomorrow is going to be Fearless Friday, and we're going to see how this kind of ties in because it's not easy to engage with the conflict, we have avoidance, we have aggression, we have passive aggressiveness to overt aggressiveness. And it's hard to harmonize those strategies and have the right balanced strategy when we're experiencing conflict, right? So then, if we engage in this learning practice and understand that we're both and we're all learning, we can give each other the grace and the benefit of the doubt that we're acting in benevolence, in martial morality, and for the good of all and for the good of one. Remember to embrace the woo, and may your chi flow smoothly. Until next time, see you tomorrow.